carefully about what I tell you. I think that having played with the Ouija board, it was one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life. Feel that at night, they knock on your window, or whisper in your ear, to see a shadow standing on the edge of my bed. I don't think it's at all a good thing.
At that time we were in high school. I remember that it was a beautiful time. Being a teenager, you are not afraid of anything. We were between 16 and 17 years old. We were always the same group of 5 friends. Richard, a rather strange and lonely boy, but a good kid. David, Thomas, William and I. This all started during the holidays. On a day in the month of June. Chatting about everything a little with Richard. He invited us to stay at his house. He told us that he had a Ouija board, and that it would be nice to play, to find out if what they said about her was true or not. The truth is that maybe, out of fear, or not knowing what could happen, we didn't like the idea of playing with the Ouija board very much. But despite this, we agreed to give him the pleasure. That night at Richard's house, we were all ready to play with the Ouija board. Richard looked for the board and put it on the table. Then he lit some black candles, and he also added some tarot cards that supposedly belonged to his grandmother, who had recently passed away. I remember we started playing, and the truth that we thought was all a lie. That Richard, he wanted to play some kind of joke on us or something similar. We asked a lot of questions between laughs, but nothing happened. We finished the game and went to sleep. It was that same night at approximately 3 in the morning that we began to hear knocks and things falling, coming from the kitchen. We all went together to see what those noises were, and we find that in the kitchen, it was literally all torn and scattered. Smashed plates and glasses, the chairs fallen and the doors of the cupboards all open. We were stunned. At that moment Richard's mom got up, and she also went to the kitchen, surely thinking that thieves had entered. When she saw us, she immediately kicked us out into the street. She thought that we had destroyed everything. Already in the street, we were all a little confused. No one really understood what had happened. Or maybe yes. But no one said. We left believing, or with the idea, that Richard, he was playing a joke on us. Each one of us went to his house, and the next day we met again. Richard, he apologized to us because the mother had thrown us out. And he also asked us for forgiveness, because he had made a serious mistake. We laughed and didn't give it any importance. But we were totally wrong. That night at my house, I felt the room different. It was hard for me to even breathe. It felt a really dense environment. In a moment I wake up, and I feel that they knock on the window and they yell at me. I also managed to see, when I opened my eyes at the foot of my bed, stopped and motionless, to a totally black shadow, which immediately disappeared. But I couldn't keep sleeping. The next day Thomas asked me seriously. Yes, something had happened to me during the night. I replied no. But he, with a scared face, told me that he woke up in the middle of the night when he felt someone climb on his bed, and that this began to hit him strongly all over his body. By that time he was already pretty scared. We asked William what did he think, and the first thing he told us was that for him, it was all because of the Ouija board, and that we would never have to play it again. On the contrary, when we talked to Richard, he was obsessed. To him, the ghost of his grandmother was appearing, and supposedly, she was telling him the things that were going to happen in the future. A few days later, we went back to play again, and then another and another one. We started doing it almost every day, until, without realizing it, everything got out of control. And I swear it was like that. What happened first and gave us that sign was David. He being alone in his house. He put a knife to heat on the kitchen stove. He left him until he was red hot. Then he took it and leaned it directly on her arm. For what? He did that. Well, I put it right where he had his tattoo, which coincidentally was the tattoo of an angel. According to what we could find out, it was because someone or something, he had ordered it, and according to him, he had to do it. Sometime later, he ended up admitted to a neuropsychiatric hospital, doing a treatment. Thomas and William just walked away from the group. Richard continued to use the Ouija board, and I didn't hear from him anymore. For my part, many misfortunes came into my life. My parents lost their jobs, and then they got divorced. In my house, everyday noises and presences were felt. It was horrible. I dropped out of school, and little by little I distanced myself from everyone. A bit because of me and also because no one wanted to be near me. Many said that I had something wrong. On top of that, I was really at the bottom of a well. I was feeling very bad and depressed. One day when I was alone in my room, I felt something grab me tightly by the neck. He squeezed me and didn't let me breathe. I even felt like a claw. It was scratching my entire chest. At that moment, I was really looking forward to ending it all, even end my own life. I couldn't take it anymore. I even put a rope to do it. But for some reason I didn't. And another idea quickly occupied my head. I felt like I had to set the whole house on fire. That way everything would end, or at least that's what I thought. And so I did. I set the whole house on fire. It was a terrible thing and I regret doing it. But sadly I did. The lot was very big and there was another house in the back. So we had to move to that place. After a while, I moved in with my grandparents. And it was at that moment that I started working. I was finally able to rent an apartment, so I can go live alone. But everything was far from over. In my new apartment, once again, the same dark shadow began to appear. All ready for those heights. I had the feeling that I was going crazy. And unfortunately I started with vices of all kinds. I began to consume all kinds of drugs. Everything you can think of. With that I used to get high. What is true, and I can assure you, is that when I was high, reality was different. I no longer thought of anything and it was like an escape. But it was really destroying me, physically and spiritually. Unfortunately in 2013 my mother passed away. And that was a tremendous blow to me. Talking to my brother who still lived in the same house. He told me that in the house, continuously, shadows of all kinds kept appearing. And on many occasions, he felt like someone was sitting on his bed. He also told me that they couldn't have pets, since at the time of taking a pet, pets ended up dying for no reason. It was that same year that I met a girl. She was a Christian, and she agreed with me to go bless the house. She went with other people from her church to try to solve what was happening. That day that we met, she offered me her help. I turned her down right away. Honestly, I didn't believe anything when it came to religious issues. The truth that he felt repugnance for the church. But this girl was persevering. And she did not stop offering me help for years. It was in the year 2018 that I really couldn't take it anymore. My life was unbearable. In the apartment I was renting, they kept happening, all sorts of strange things. The lights, like the TV, turned on and off on their own. You felt presences all the time. Not only me, even the people who came to visit me, felt them. Once one of my friends, he felt like something was growling in his ear. Sometimes out of nowhere, he began to smell rotten. And as the smell appeared, it disappeared. Once I clearly smelled sulfur. I was in a state of total depression. My life was a mess. And he was literally killing me with drugs. So that year, I finally decided to accept the help of Karen, the Christian girl. The first thing this girl did, Karen, was to take me by force and obligatorily to her church. I repeat, I hated everything related to religions. In my head all that was an absolute lie. But I went anyway. When we arrived we were greeted by a shepherd. The three of us were chatting for a while, and the pastor told me that he was going to help me. He asked me for a moment and went in search of another pastor. It was the two of them who together began to pray in front of me. It was here, where all my religious beliefs, they put themselves to the test and in a different perspective. When they started to pray I fainted. I don't know for how long, but when I regained consciousness, the pastor I was talking to, he asked me to please congregate in a church. I rejected it immediately. I didn't want to know anything with any church. But the strange thing was that when I got out of there, I felt like a different person. I didn't have that load and tension on my back that I endured for many years. I was in a better mood. I felt much better. I don't know what happened. I can't be sure of anything. But suddenly my life began to change. The first thing I did was to manage to leave all the vices that he had. And I did, from one day to the next. My friends couldn't believe it. They told me that they saw me differently. My look was different. My mood changed completely. My life finally seemed to be looking up. Nobody really could believe it. Even I was surprised by what was happening. Little by little everything got better. I joined a church. And maybe thanks to her and above all thanks to God. Today I am fine, and I feel protected. As for the group of friends, on one occasion I met Richard again. He was going through a serious illness, which unfortunately was already very advanced. He told me that he had also given himself over to religion, and in a nice chat we became friends again. And he confessed to me that for him, that night we had invoked demons or very bad entities, and that stuck to all of us. Soon after, unfortunately Richard died. To Thomas, I also came across him, and he told me among many things, be very careful, because there is something that is persecuting us all, and wants to hurt us a lot. He was clearly still a bit disturbed. William was left with serious mental problems. And from what I found out, he lived like a hermit locked up in his house. I never spoke to him again since those years. David also had many psychological problems, and he was quite secluded from people. That afternoon, that Karen forced me to go to church. The shepherds told me that they had removed an entity that I had stuck to my back. I really don't know if it was like that or not. But when I got out of there I never felt again that feeling that my life was submerged in darkness. That Ouija board that many call a game. That night in June 2001 changed my life and that of my 4 friends forever. None of us knew what was waiting for us. Today I can tell what happened to me and what I experienced. And he assured them from my own experience that the Ouija board is not a game.
Think carefully about what I tell you. I think that having played with the Ouija board, it was one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life. Not so much for the game itself, rather because of what happened next. The first night that we played with the Ouija board, we had asked for a sign, and at about 3 in the morning, noise of glasses and plates falling began to be heard. We thought they were arguing in the house, and when we went to the kitchen, everything was scattered. Everything was broken. Then, everything that had to happen happened. Once we were alone, each in their respective houses, at least to me, feel that at night. They knock on your window or whisper in your ear, to see a shadow standing on the edge of my bed. I don't think it's at all a good thing. From then on, everything changed. Another horrible thing that happened to me was that, already, after a long time, having played with the Ouija board. At home there was a smell of rottenness, the smell of death, the smell of dung. One day sleeping, I feel that they hug me from behind very strongly. Did you see? Like when they don't let you breathe. And at that moment I began to feel like hanging myself. I wanted to hang myself. It was a matter of seconds, but I felt it that way. The only way to get those thoughts out of my head, it was that at that moment, starting to think in my mind about setting the whole house on fire, I repeated to myself, I have to set everything on fire. And so I did. The truth, that he could not find help anywhere, to get rid of everything that was happening to me. The bad of all this, it's just that it wasn't just happening to me. It also happened to people who came to visit my house, or the people who were close to me. They saw horrible things. Shadows, red eyes in the dark. Some felt that they were being spoken to or growled in their ears. Something totally traumatizing, to the point of feeling that you were going to go crazy. Until, well, I had to have spiritual help, after almost 15 years. I was able to receive that spiritual help that I was so lacking. Thank God today I am free of all that followed me. I tell this so that young people don't make the same mistake that I made. If they can avoid playing with that damn Ouija board, don't play boys because very ugly things happen.
Leave me in the comments if you liked the video. And what do you think about this experience? And specifically, what do you think about the Ouija board? It would be nice if everyone. Let's make it clear that maybe there are things with which it is better not to mess.